Good evening everyone, good evening classmate. My name is Efriano A. Madrigal and I am the first reporter of Group 4. But before we go to my lesson proper, let us play first. Our game for tonight is called 4 Picks, 1 Word. The mechanics of this game is we're going to associate one word for a certain 4 pictures. Now let's begin. What word can we associate with these 4 pictures? Right, the word is problem. How about these pictures? It's correct. The word is collaboration. How about these 4 pictures? Right. The word is agreement. The 3 words are my key points of my report. Problem, collaboration, and agreement or resolution. With that note, I welcome you all to my lesson, Collaborative Behaviors in Supervision. Collaborative behavior in collaborative approach is an approach where supervisor and teacher exchange ideas and agree upon a course of action. The supervisor in this approach encourages teachers to express their perceptions and ideas. Thus, most often, these behaviors are employed for resolving problems. With that regards, let's tackle resolving problems with collaborative behaviors. Collaborative behaviors are used when a supervisor and teacher equally share a problem. Supervisor and teacher both share their views and honest opinions. A mutual solution to a problem is sought out and the goal is to reach an agreement. This agreement is not discouraged in conversation. When the supervisors sees conversation moving towards agreement, they steer the conversation towards resolution. When the conversation leaves off stalemated, a mediator may be introduced in order to reach a resolution to the shared problem. Now let's go to the first behavior or first step, which is clarifying. Clarifying is the first behavior involved when supervisor uses collaborative behaviors. The purpose of this step is to identify the perspective the teacher has on the problem or concern. The supervisor may ask the following questions. Please tell me what is bothering you, or explain to me your greatest concerns. At this point, the supervisor is probing or examining the underlying problem and to gather additional information about the problem. At this point also, the main focus of the supervisor is to identify clearly the problem within the perspective of the concerned teacher. Moving on to our second behavior or second step, which is listening. The supervisor's goal is to obtain as much information as possible before thinking of an action plan. As the teacher explains his or her perceptions of the problem, the supervisor must use a wide range of behaviors that demonstrates sincere and intense listening. In order for us to fully grasp what is sincere and intense listening, let us watch this video.
Many of us don't listen to other people. Instead, we just think and wait for our turn to express our own opinion. Take a step back and look at your colleagues' conversations. It's likely it'll look more like 2 monologues where everyone tells about themselves. The cure for it is active listening. It's a very powerful skill. It brings people closer, builds trust, and helps people to open up. Here are 5 steps on how to do it. 1. Stay focused. Keep natural eye contact, don't judge, and be patient. 2. Really listen. Don't think about your similar experiences and what you should tell next. 3. Allow for periods of silence. Wait till the other person speaks again. 4. From time to time, repeat the other person's words or paraphrase it back to them. It will reassure that you really listen and encourage them to open up. 5. Understand the emotions behind the words. When you paraphrase, also try to express the other feelings back to them.
In general, at this point, the supervisor will wait and listen attentively until the teacher's initial statement is made. Now let's go to the next step, which is presenting. The first 3 steps in a conference with collaborative behaviors are non-directive, meaning the supervisor allows the teacher to speak up or to express his sentiments or ideas about the problem. At this point in presenting, a shift happens. The supervisor now gives his or her own opinion or point of view about the problem. There may be information about the situation that the supervisor must now fill in. The teacher's position is not influenced by the supervisor because it is stated first, meaning the teacher's perspective is not influenced by the supervisor's perspective because the teacher's perspective is stated first. At this point, the supervisor will ask the teacher for a commitment to a decision or resolution, or to what course of action should do in order to end up with a solution. With that note, let's proceed to the next step or behavior, which is clarifying. Clarifying occurs a second time and perhaps a third time if mediation becomes necessary. The supervisor at this step in the resolution process seeks the teacher's understanding of his or her perception of the problem. The teacher is asked to do likewise and paraphrase the view of the supervisor. The supervisor prompts this response with question. At this point, the supervisor will make sure that the teacher understands his point of view and grasp what he is trying or intended to point out. Once the supervisor feels that the teacher understands his or her perception of the problem solving can begin. Now let's proceed to problem solving. In problem solving, supervisor and teacher exchange ideas for solving the problem. The supervisor may say to the teacher, "Let's both think about what can be done to improve the situation." Teacher and supervisor can write separate lists of suggestions. They may listen to each other and collaboratively exchange thoughts about solution. At this point also, the teacher and the supervisor are expected to brainstorm or share their ideas or lay down their ideas to come up with the possible solutions. Some teacher may be apprehensive about giving their own ideas for resolutions, and therefore, a break where both parties write down possible resolutions before speaking is recommended. With that note, this stage promotes true collaboration and allows for a genuine exchange of personal ideas connected to individuals, and it is non-directive. Now let's move into encouraging. During this time, the supervisor reassures the teachers that conflict is acceptable. There are no winners nor losers. The agreement is that both teacher and supervisor must agree on an action before any solution will take place. There must be a genuine belief that conflict between two caring professionals leads to the best solution. At this point also, the supervisor will assure the teacher that his ideas is valuable. In other words, the supervisor will encourage the teacher to flip up all his cards without any discrimination or without any bias. At this point also, the supervisor will show willingness to listen further as the teacher begins to state the possible solution. After that comes negotiating. Negotiating. The goal of negotiating is to find an acceptable solution that both supervisor and teacher agree upon. Suggestions are compared and contrasted. At this point also, the supervisor will weigh the pros and cons of the suggested ideas. Points of agreement and disagreement are noted. If there is much disagreement, the following 4 steps can be taken. 1. Investigate whether the differences are as vast as they come across to be. Both teacher and supervisor thoroughly explain what they mean. Number 2. Determine if the disagreement is very real and how solid each stance is. Number 3. Consider compromise and find a middle solution. Number 4. Drop top resolutions and seek out another. With that note, let's proceed to standardizing. Once supervisor and teacher reach an agreement to a resolution, details of the plan must be agreed on as well. The supervisor attends to the details. The details are then discussed and agreed on in order for there to be a specialized precise plan of action. In other words, the time, place, and follow-up is set. When we say time, it will answer when will the plan be implemented. When we say place, where will the plan be implemented? When we say follow-up, who will help and what resources will be needed? Then after that is reflecting. The final plan is reviewed and summarized. Both teacher and supervisor agree to the action and the details involved in the resolution process. The supervisor may either seek verbal or written affirmation that the plan of action is agreed upon and understood in detail by the teacher. In other words, the resolution or the plan of action is sealed with verbal affirmation or written affirmation, but it is best, as suggested, if it is done in a written form. With that being said, the goal of the talks is now achieved, which is to find a solution or to reach resolution of a certain problem. But the question is, when to use collaborative behaviors? Collaborative behaviors should be used when teachers are functioning at moderately high or mixed developmental levels. It can also be used when teachers and supervisors have similar expertise on the issue at hand, meaning both of them are knowledgeable enough about the issue or the problem. It can also be used when both teacher and supervisor will be involved in carrying out the plan, meaning to say, both of them is aiming for solution and not for division. It can also be used when teacher and or teachers will be accountable for showing results of the collaborative approach. It can also be used when teacher and supervisor are both committed to solving the problem. Collaborative approach or collaborative model using collaborative behaviors is effective within the basis of trust between supervisors and teachers. This approach is useful if the supervisor already established rapport among his teachers. It is also effective when the supervisor or the school already has an environment that welcomes and values teachers' ideas. The supervisor must be a role model of respect, open-mindedness, kindness, humility, and can be able to influence collaborative work with his teachers. As what the saying says, good leaders must first become good servants. That's all my report, and thank you for listening.